Yes, Your Honor.
We'll go ahead and call this working session to order, please. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Here.
Hill?
Here.
Mingus?
Here.
Sutherland?
Here.
Mayor Call?
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
Thank you. On the docket this evening, we had a working session on tourism and special events, 2019 recap and 2020 plan. Doug McCarty will be presenting to the council this evening and to the public the recap and the plan that he would like us to consider for the upcoming fiscal year of 2020. Of course, no formal action will be taken this evening, and with that being said, Doug, it's all yours. You have the floor.
Guys. So tonight I want to go through some things, like you said, go over a little bit of a recap where we've been, where we're looking to head, and make sure that there's plenty of time and opportunity for questions, and making sure that we leave here tonight with an understanding of kind of what this department is now. I know there's a lot of people, a lot of you up there that have had history past, were involved from the start, during the middle, currently, you know, everybody's had a piece in it, so I think it's important we kind of bring all that together and see where we're going now versus where we've been. So at any time, I definitely want to make sure you guys ask questions and get things answered as we move forward. So we'll go back to what Rick gave you, kind of a rough draft. We think it's pretty set on the number of events, very similar to last year. I'll get into that in more detail. We'll leave some time at the end for questions on any of those, but another full year coming up. It's down at Levy District, Riverfront Park, Festival, Eastside. It's all kind of chamber events are all into one. We will have a next Thursday morning, a presentation of events, which we do every year. We've done it for about the last 4 or 5 years, which invites the businesses, the hotels, to come down, ask questions, get a calendar so that they're prepared. I think one of the things, and we may bring it up again, we've had issues, you know, not issues on our end, but Jersey Mike's runs out of bread, or Avani's, or different restaurants aren't staffed properly for the crowds, and it's a bad reflection on us sometimes because these tournaments and events are about the experience. And it's not only about the games they play or the event they're at, but what else do they do when they're here, and we want to make sure that we prepare our business community to make sure that they have all those things in place for when the large crowds come. So we try to get that word out as much as possible. A little bit easier now than it was maybe 10 years ago with social media and able to get some of those things. And you see we've added that to that calendar event so that people can follow us on those different platforms to get updates and things, especially weather delays, festival lights, and some of those things. So we might circle back to that, but to kind of go over a little bit of a recap and preview, there's over 75 events scheduled in 2020 that will bring visitors to town, and that does not include some of the local recreational type events or events that are just solely with residents. And so kind of break that down a little bit. In 2019, there were over 2,000 tournament games played at Eastside. As you see there, it does not include some of the camps, a couple other events that we don't really know, these 8 special events that bring people, but it's not necessarily a tournament. So I tried to separate those out a little bit from special events versus like actual tournament play and sports. Over 750 local recreational games, which is a lot of the schools, the park district, those recreational leagues that have been around for many years. They usually take up the Monday through Thursday slots, and then the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're trying to bring an event in that brings people from out of town. That's kind of the formula that we've had for the last few years. It seems to work. I'll touch on some things later in the presentation about the decline in local recreational play, and that has a lot to do with the industry that we're in and travel, and some different factors go into that. I don't necessarily think that less kids are playing sports. It's just they're not playing that level, and it's a trend that's going in the opposite direction. And so, again, for some of the ones that had older kids that were in years ago, and even when Seth and I were coming up, the stuff that's going on now didn't even exist when we were coming through. So it's a totally different industry, and it's a big money industry, as we'll find out very shortly. As I mentioned, the 2020 schedule looks very similar, so we don't expect any major changes there. A couple date changes on some events, but nothing major is gone, or nothing's really any different. So we'll look forward to a similar type schedule. Jump over the Festival Lights quick. Great year, just finished up, obviously. Well over 100,000 visitors. We calculate around 25,000 vehicles go through the Winter Wonderland, which tough to tell how many people, but if you say there's an average of 4 people in a car, that's 100,000 people. Now, there's buses of 50-some people, there's date night, there's things like that, so it's just 2 people in a car. So we think it's well over 100,000 when you calculate the buses and some of the other larger vehicles that come in. All the other events were well attended. Obviously, the parade night was great. We had a great night weather-wise. Clydesdales helped. So the other events that we do, you know, the River Trail Classic and some of the other smaller events that, you know, Jill and some of the other volunteers help with were all well attended. And Jill would tell you that the comments have been very positive this year. It seems like everything went well, the events that we have down here. So looking forward to a really big year, you know, next year. TV show and things things that are coming up here I'll discuss here shortly. Levy District, there are 25 events scheduled for this coming year. Some of those are, for example, the car shows that maybe repeat every first of the month or every Friday, but we count them each as a different event. That's a different time that people come down. So good schedule there. Riverfront, obviously, 4th of July and some of the military ride and the Tracy Trot that go on down there. So we don't want to leave Riverfront out. There's some events down there that bring quite a bit of people to town. The next slide is something I got from the Convention and Visitors Bureau in the spring. Was impact by county in the Peoria area. And it's basically from 17 to 18. If you look at the bottom, I tried to highlight it there, the change from 17 to 18 and the percentage that Tazewell County was compared to the other counties in the area. Now, that obviously includes Pekin and Washington and Morton and other ones, but I would like to think that a lot of that is due to the things we're doing here in East Peoria. So as you can see us compared to the other counties around us, we had a really good improvement. And so we'll see what those numbers look like coming in for 2019, but that'll be probably later in the year. Kind of break these down a little bit. That was just a little bit of an overview. Festival Lights, those are our admission fees to Winter Wonderland. That's an unofficial number. We're pretty close. I just got to get some final calculations to make sure that's right. That puts us at a 6-year average. I've been in this position for 6 years now, and this is our 6th festival, and we're right on average where we've been. Sponsorships in partnership with the chamber. We go out and get those sponsorships. Those are the ones you see in the guide, and then we split that. They pay for the printing and things like that, and then we go ahead and split that at the end of the season. Like I said before, the other events were successful. The New Year's Eve Get Lit event, we changed up a little bit. We tried to make it more family-friendly, moved it up to 9 o'clock. We had over 250 people sign up, and we did a bonfire with hot dogs and s'mores and did some like hay rack rides, but we did them on the trolley. It was a great event, turned out well, the weather was great. So looking to build on that next year, trying to get some more interest in some of these other secondary events that go along with Wonderland and the parade. One thing I want to bring up, especially with the new council, is that after the 2010 season, there had to be some significant changes that were made for the festival to continue, and Commissioner Decker was around on that time. You can see what the admissions were then, and it was, do we keep this thing going or not? And we made some pretty significant changes all the way around, whether it was LED lights, the labor, just a lot of different things. And so I bring this up because you can see what the balance in Hotel Motel was after that season. And the reason I say that is because from that point on, the changes we made, the Festival of Lights broke even at worst. And so some of the money that was having to go pay for the festival not making money was able to go back into the balance. And so now you can see the balance, and Jeff's here to kind of make sure that my numbers are right. I don't have the exact numbers, but we are, we're approaching some numbers because we've been able to add each year and put some money away. And just like we talk about with, other budgets and things like that, it's been great to see. And now it's kind of why we're here tonight is how do we move forward and making sure that we continue the success that we've been having. And so that's how we'll kind of get into some of these other things. Real quick for 2020, I mentioned the TV show. Don't have a date yet. Once we do, we'll kind of plan some events around that and see how things go. No matter what, win or lose, we're expecting larger than normal crowds. We're going to be on primetime national TV, and again with social media and things like that, we're expecting some large traffic numbers for the next few years. So we need to kind of make arrangements now. So Rick and I and Jill and everybody, we've been getting together trying to get ahead of it. Some of the improvements, we're going to talk about possibly a website better than the one we already have, to be able to maybe pre-book some things, get with the hotels, do some stay and play packages type things, trying to get people to stay more than just to come see this. So we figure they're going to come further away, figure out if we can have special rates or special packages with these families, different hotels in East Peoria. We'll work with them one-on-one, and then maybe have some options for people to try to extend that stay and generate that extra tax revenue. So we'll be working on all that with the restaurants and everybody, but we're working on possibly some different types of packages of that. Some improvements that need to be made that we've already talked about. Par 3 lane, it needs to be done anyway. So this is a great time to work on that as far as adding another lane, and that would take some traffic off of Springfield Road. And so we can get them lined up in the park a little bit more, and it gives us a little bit more room with the residents that live there. It's pretty tight right now to get in and out, when, especially on the busy nights. So that would allow us to take care of a road that probably needs to be done anyway, and obviously prepare for larger traffic. And then I threw it in there. I had this from Patrick Meyer last year. The shaded area, it's the picture, that's what he quoted, that just to do that area. And I think that parking lot's really big. It's probably bigger than it needs to be. So to kind of maybe do a small section right out front for the events that we have there. Obviously, we have a lot of different fire and East Light Theater and a lot of different city meetings, IDOT, things like that, and still have quite a few rentals in the festival building. And right now, the parking lot's just tore up. I mean, people are getting hurt. I mean, you can't see at night when redo the lighting. But that section could be redone, and then the rest of it we could tackle down the road, whether we want to just maybe tear it out and grass it. If we don't need it after a few years, we realize that that's just too much parking, too much hard surface, and we can just do something else, or we could eventually just do a cheaper route, heat scarify, and go that route and just prolong the life of that exterior part of the parking lot. So just a couple of things to think about with the festival. I'll jump over to the other special events, especially down here in the Levee District. I mentioned 25 in the Levee District. This began in 2014 when all this was built. There were only a handful of events. The first one was the Easter Seals Run, and everything took off after that. Word of mouth, just the way it's laid out down here, people just thought this was great. And as we're seeing that same thing today, 5-6 years later, none of these were hosted in East, none of the 25 that we have were hosted in East Peoria before. So they were either didn't exist or they came from other communities. So we've had success where if someone's brought an event to town, they don't want to leave. And so we've seen the growth every year of more and more people wanting to host their events and we saw just the awesome impact of the Cars and Coffee Panera Bread over here. I'll let Rick talk about it here if he wants. I think on Saturday morning is the first Saturday of the month. They're going to have probably their best day of the month. So it's nice. I know Commissioner Hill talked about we needed a couple more places to have the coffee part of it, and so that's a perfect fit. I'm assuming they're looking forward to it. And then I know with the other businesses, we talked about Jersey Mike's.
They're definitely looking forward to it, and that was one of the catalysts of the voting application also. And along with Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, all of the stores, Target, we talked to Dan at Costco, they give out day passes for the folks that are there. People go in there and shop, they come out with armloads of things, so, the sales tax dollars is significant. We do 2 of those a month for the car shows, and then you look at all the other events that are there, so.
Hey, I didn't mean to slight you. You can step up there where you can talk into a mic. It's being recorded, so I apologize, Rick. I left you out of
That's
that
our way to keep them
equation.
from not talking as much.
I knew what I would have said.
So before I get into kind of East Side and some of the tournaments and what East Side is, it's kind of like I want to go over a few things about youth sports tourism specifically. It's a new phrase. It's a new thing, and it's kind of out of control. Country, United States. Just real quick, I want to. Next couple slides are going to be kind of more informational and educational. East Side, when it was built, was before its time. I'll be honest. Disney Wide World of Sports opened in '97, and that was the first mega complex where it was multiple sports, multiple fields. You had a lot of community parks and things, and I know there was a lot of debate about Park District City back then. I don't think anybody realized what East Side the potential was, and it took a few years to figure it out. And when they realized that you could do so many sports, so many different types of sports, and large amounts of people, that's when I think things turned the corner. And so now, since about 2010, we're into this hyper mega sports complex mode that I'm going to get into, but I got a couple clips from articles and a couple things that I want to just compare what we already did compared to what these people are doing now, and making sure that we understand like what we still have, I guess is kind of where I'm going. So the first thing is, Homer Glen is just recently, within the last month, is doing an impact on a sports complex. And a couple things, the city, and if you read through that, I'm not going to read it all, but it serves as a catalyst for economic development through the enhancement of existing and attraction of new businesses. Okay, so go back to Eastside, and some of you guys may know this better than I. I'm pretty sure before Eastside and the Paradise came in the mid-'90s, there were about 2 or 3 hotels. And one of them was about to close anyway, where Walgreens and Bob Evans is. You had the Holiday Inn and the Motel 6. I don't know that there were many others in East Peoria. None of them that are here now were there in the mid-'90s. All of these and everything that we've had built, not directly an impact of Eastside, I would never say that, but with bringing the casino and bringing a sports complex and you're bringing people to town, the hotels came along with it. Along with that became restaurants and the stores that we have. If you look at the way East Peoria was in the early mid-'90s, it doesn't, obviously we all know it doesn't look the way it does now. So a town of 23,000 people, in my opinion, can't support a casino and a Costco and a Bass Pro and all these things. We need the people coming to town from the area, the state, the Midwest to support all these businesses. So I think that was what started everything in the late 90s, early 2000s, and now we're seeing some of that benefit of bringing people to town. Just another quick one. The mayor up there, he mentions that they do not levy a municipal property tax on its residents, but rely on sales tax revenue to fund much of its budget. Where are we at now? I mean, we look at what we're doing. You guys have made a decision to try to go sales tax as much as possible. So this is what communities are doing across the country because they can't keep raising property taxes. So the model that we've started here is what other people are already doing as well. So I just want to point that out. There's some correlation there to what cities are trying to do now and versus what we've kind of already been down that path. So just I want to kind of point out. Some of this other things about this tourism, youth tourism is big. In the United States, youth travel, sports is a $19 billion industry. Just for example, the NFL is a $15 billion industry. This has taken off since about 2010, and the growth, there's no end to it. And then this is all research, things that I pulled from different studies and different articles. Just to pass through a couple. Again, cities are looking to tap into the opportunity of youth sports tourism primarily for economic development, and they're trying to build these things. It's the whole field of dreams. If you build it, they will come, and I don't think we realized that at first at Eastside, and then we found that out as we got into Eastside. So this is what a lot of communities are doing. Sports tourism is a proven vehicle to produce millions in economic impact through visitor spending and hotel, motel tax, and other mechanisms. It's, again, trying to extend their stay, get them here for an event, get them to stay a night, and that ties back into the festival as well. And trying to figure out a way not to just get them to come for the one day, check out the Wonderland, but trying to tie that in with other events in the area, whether that's, the Riverfront Museum or anything else going on in the area. So that's kind of the mentality it's been for the last 4 or 5 years that I've had. And so I'm just trying to kind of bring all that kind of to the forefront here. Just a couple of other examples there. The youth sports industry has grown 55% since 2010. So youth complexes become part of an ecosystem by putting heads in beds, filling up restaurants, delivering economic impact. Just examples of other complexes that I research and see that those communities are having the same impact that we're having. Next page. Kind of shows the example. This is an example I want to just bring up just to be aware. I talk about these mega sports complexes, and these are, as you can see, these are just drawings, and these are all exist. But they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and a lot of them are going out into fields where they can expand. These are somewhat surrounding us. Not only do we have, obviously, Louisville Slugger, but they're really, really more of a bats and balls. I mean, they designed it for baseball, softball for the most part, whereas Eastside's got soccer, and we got indoor sports, track, football, and some other sports. So we've got multi-sports where they're a little bit more focused on 1 or 2 sports. But these, for example, Rockford, Bettendorf, Iowa, Kentucky, suburb of Indianapolis. So these are kind of popping up all around us. And so it's something to kind of think about, and I think as I get into East Side and what we are and what we need to be, we are what we are, and there's not a whole lot of room to be mega like these. But what we do is we need to be really good at what we do, because there's always going to be opportunities, and there's multiple sports, but we have to be really good because the competition's out there, and it's not going away. So I want to kind of show that this industry, how big it is, but there's a lot out there, and there's plenty out there. We just have to make sure that we're keeping up with our facilities and making sure that they have good experiences when they're here. And so I just want to throw that out there as kind of we get surrounded by, and I just showed the example of the suburbs. And so while there is going to be competition coming up, I still feel like we're in a really good spot and we can continue to be successful. Kind of specific to East Side, obviously built in '96. It's very much of it's still in its original state. I mean, we've gotten through the last 20 plus years, but again, the time, if we want to stay competitive in a very aggressive market, we've got to make some improvements and get some of this stuff up to date. Just another quote there that I found from somebody, if you can't rest on what you've done or you'll be out of business. And I think that example, those pictures up there, are a perfect example of that. If we don't and we kind of just stay the way it is, it's just going to, things will just go. And then we're at a point now where contracts are coming up. Other facilities are looking to bid on events that we have. So we're looking to make a little bit of improvement to say, hey, we still want to be in the game. And I think tonight that's why I'm here, is to make sure that we still want to be in the game. And so if not, then we roll the dice and let it run its course. But I don't think we're at that point yet. Mentioned earlier, just another stat that little leagues, soccer leagues, church basketball, those things that we all had as kids, they've lost their luster. And Little League participation is down 20% from turn of the century, which makes sense because that's what it was. It was all local travel, travel to the local community. It wasn't travel halfway across the country to go to a tournament. So that's what it's kind of evolved into. We would have an additional, couple acres. We've got the splashdown area. We've got the lagoon area. We've talked about being able to drain and build on or in. We could always redevelop the soccer area. Soccer for us is good, but soccer is a sport where you typically see multiple, like 2 dozen soccer fields all at once have large tournaments. We do really well with some training facilities and some smaller soccer stuff, but Jeff and I have talked about, that's a perfect area of another 7 or 8 acres that we could totally redevelop if there's another sport or another idea we want to come up with down the road. Now, with that said, I feel like before any kind of large redevelopment of any property, I think we need to make sure that we get the current facilities up to where they need to be and making sure that we're competitive and equal with some of these other facilities that are bidding on the same types of events. So that would be more of a long-term phase 2 type thing that we could talk about. I mentioned some of the city versus park. There was, for years I had to say, maybe this should be a park district thing. Here's the difference between city and park, and I could show you complexes all across the country that are municipal, run by municipalities. And the main reason for that is the municipality collects the tax revenue. So a park district that's separate from the city, what would be their incentive to run a bunch of tournaments and have hotel rooms and sales tax and all those tax revenues when it goes right back to the city? So the park districts that you hear that run these complexes are basically park districts that are part of the city. They're not separate like the way we are here. So it would have been not very beneficial for Final Act to try to run sports tournaments. So they would have been more in the recreational part, which is a part that we still provide them, but it wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense to do the tourism part of it and bringing people to town. So that was just another thing over the years that I've tried to explain to people in the public or anywhere as to why the municipalities take advantage of those overnight stays and getting people from out of town to come. So some of the current needs, concerns, a little bit both inside and outside. There's obviously some safety concerns with fences, concrete, trip hazards, drainage. Roofs are original on all the buildings. I'll use an example. We've had 2 of the 6 basketball rims. The motors and the winches that pull them up and down have just gave out, but they're 24 years old. So those things are starting to come up now, whether it's just stuff you don't think about. It just happens, and you're like, okay, now we've got to replace this. Kind of no different than a building or a house. If you don't put stuff back into it, so eventually start coming apart. So some routine maintenance stuff. The first 10 years were great. Everything was new, but we actually had a full-time maintenance person that would take care of buildings and things. And now that position is just more of citywide. That department kind of combined, and now they've got to control every city building. And we've got 7 buildings. When you count the concession stands and maintenance and everything. So there's a lot of maintenance, daily maintenance that sometimes has to kind of fall in line based on what the priorities are with other buildings. And so that's something that we kind of fell behind on maybe 10 years ago when that position was taken and basically put into more of a citywide position. So just an example of how we kind of started to fall behind. Appearance in all areas, and that's not just East Side. I think it's whether that's a festival building, anything in our department. I think maybe even citywide. I almost think that the city could almost use like a person or two just to go paint, like just simple stuff. Offices and doors and just things that, the gym and some of the fitness areas that it's a pretty big project, but it's just never enough time and not enough people to do it. So just appearance and just kind of freshening things up. We've got the old splashdown ticket area that has been empty, and it's just a blank room. So there's some ideas. One of the ideas, we have a lot of tournaments, we have a lot of umpires. One of the things the umpires do when they have a game or two break is they just have to go sit in the car or make a little umpire lounge. So give them somewhere to get out of the heat, come inside, maybe put a TV, just something like that to where it kind of gives that experience like they feel like they're welcome, and we're kind of, giving them a better opportunity to feel like they're welcome there. Equipment, obviously some of it's still original. There was really never a replacement plan, and I think that goes for many departments. So you guys have all kind of heard that. There's nothing different there. We'll touch on some of that later. Into fitness in the future there, obviously minimum wage with childcare and front desk, and some of that stuff's going to have to be addressed. The memberships and the competition, and I think really again I go back to when Eastside was built. It was the best. There was, if I remember right, it was Eastside and Fitness America on 116. There weren't many other places to go work out, and now look at it. Everywhere you go, there's somewhere to go work out. And we've had, since Eastside, there's been 5 Points and Riverplex and a new ICC, and then Planet Fitness, of course, and then you have all these fad, core boxing and Farrell's, and all these different places pop up. So when you have, so let's say 5 Points, when we had a large number of Washington residents, when 5 Points is built, you're not going to drive past that to come to Eastside. And so now there's so many options, Gold's Gym and Morton and Pekin, and so there's a lot of options for people to go work out. So we've got a great core group of members. We've been relatively steady, and it's a lot of our residents, great senior programs and things like that. But it's obviously something we have to kind of consider moving forward because, that stuff's, the equipment and things in there either need to be replaced or removed or anything like that. So one of the big things now, and I've mentioned to a few people, is this fitness on demand. And what that is people are busy and they want to work out on their own time. And so you see the commercials, the iPads and the iPhones, and people can jump on a bike. So there's some things out there for fitness centers just like us to set up some stations, and people can come in and go, and they basically pay to use our equipment, and then they work out on their own with their own workout stuff. And I can get into that down the road. It's probably not really necessary tonight, but it's just some thoughts that we're coming up with to try to stay relevant in the fitness world, and then being up to date with the technology. Indoor space is always at a high demand, especially this time of year. Events, rentals. That's one of the things when I took the position was I was told we need to run it more like a business because we couldn't keep just giving it away and we weren't going to be able to pay for it. So we had to find a way to make it pay for itself, and that meant we had to basically change the way we did things, and the schedules had to change a little bit. And by no means were we trying to tell the park district or tell the youth organizations that you're not welcome. It's just we had to find a way to make a little bit of money, but still balance it with giving them an opportunity to play their sports and have the facility, which is what it was built for. And I get all that. So some of that stuff has had to evolve over the years, and that no different than outside. And now sometimes people maybe get upset or question why are we renting our facility out and why is it not available to us? Well, I felt like I was told it had to pay for itself. So I couldn't just come back and say, we lost $400,000 because we allowed Johnny to go shoot hoops for three hours when I could have had a tournament or another event. So that's the mentality. So if people question, that's kind of the direction I was given before. And so just want to kind of make sure that everybody understands that that's the way we've gone, because I felt that's what we needed to do. So,
And to your point on that, Doug, and I'll vouch, that's exactly how it played out. I think it's important that people realize hotel motel tax funds is how that facility's operated. It's not off-property taxes like most people think. So I just want to throw that out there to be on the record so people have a clear understanding.
and that's probably the closing slide is that, to be honest, East Side was built from the gaming money. The debt was all paid through gaming, and improvements, large improvements are paid through hotel motel tax, and then operationally, we pretty much break even. So the day-to-day stuff pays for itself. Large improvements and anything we're talking about tonight would be from people that come to the tournament, staying at hotels, and we reinvest that money to get more people to stay in hotels. But yes, I've had to answer that question many times. It's, technically, your property tax dollars did not pay or do not pay for Eastside. So I had to throw in a few pictures, some really sweet looking pictures here. Some of the things I just talked about, original equipment, stuff that's starting to kind of get to where it needs to be repaired immediately. Not really going to go through all those. You can look at those. Second picture, just an example, it's just something small that kind of gets overlooked, but they never put gutters on the concession buildings, and you can see the water that comes up the building, and we've had cracking and had to fill some of that stuff in. So a simple fix, putting gutters on all the buildings, getting the water away from the building. No different than your house. If you don't put gutters in your house, you're going to have problems. So stuff like that, I think, is a pretty simple fix, and we just got to get it all together and start knocking some stuff out. Obviously, concrete always gives you a problem when you're 20-plus years in, the amount of traffic that happens. Some more walls, retaining walls and things like that need to be torn out and replaced. Dugouts, those are a couple, we have a few that are still original. And then inside the concession buildings, again, you have sports and mud and dirt, and people track it. So it's just a matter of time before your carpets and roof leaks and things like that. It goes back to kind of the appearance when we host these large events. We want them to make sure that they see what we said is not about, not this kind of stuff. So things like this, it's kind of small stuff that I'll get to here shortly, and that we can knock out in a hurry, but it still costs money. So I want to make sure that we kind of hopefully can take care of some of these things and get it looking the way it needs to be. Kind of switching gears a little bit, just overall, with this department, it is more than Festival and Eastside and Levy District. We do have crews that snowplow parking lots, city property that are not streets. We also have crews that mow city property. And then obviously in East Peoria, there's a lot of IDOT property that doesn't get touched. And so Mayor and I and Rick have had some meetings with them this past year. We also have some vacant lots that we own that we have to maintain. And obviously down here in Levy District and Riverfront. But the appearance of the city needs to improve. And that's because this is what the visitors see when they come here. And so I know Jeff and I have talked about other towns we visited and the way you come into the city, welcome signs, trash, weeds. So one of the things the mayor and I have talked about is making an effort to clean it up, and that can be relatively simple with a small crew that's what they do. And we can talk about that more at budget time, but I take that as something that our department, and Public Works does a great job with. They do some mowing and things, but when we're the ones bringing the visitors, and I see what they see, and I think it's something that we need to make it a focus, and I think it's a really inexpensive fix. It's just the commitment to doing it. So that'd be probably more of a budget time thing, see what we need to do there. Just touch on vehicles and equipment just like everybody. Not really a replacement plan. Replacement plans were always proposed but never followed. Got some original equipment from the 90s, 2001 Gators, things like that. Just some stuff, again, probably more of a budget time we can mix those in and get everything kind of up to date and where it needs to be. Really final thoughts, and I want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions and make sure everybody sees where we're at. I think it's important that like we just mentioned, the mayor mentioned, that we educate the public on why this is important to the city and necessary for the future, and that it's not going to be your property tax. I think that just those examples of the communities, what we do in bringing people to town to generate that sales tax is vital to the other departments, because if we don't have it, then what's our option? either raise property tax or you have to eliminate services. So I understand where I fall between the services, police, fire, public works, and all that. But I think if you dig down really deep, that without what we do and bringing people to town and the commitment that the city made to make East Peoria what it is with the shops, the restaurants, and hotels, then these other departments suffer by the lack of visitors. So that's why I feel like it's important to make sure we invest into bringing people to town so that these other departments have the funds they need to get the things that they have to do their job. Because we're not doing it with property tax. We've made that pretty clear. So that's why I feel it's really important. There's a lot for many years when ideas were brought up. The answer was always, well, how are we going to pay for it? And I said, well, we can't spend that. It's this. It's saved for this. Well, I've shown that we've built that up over the years. So we've taken a little bit of sacrifice to build up some funds so that we're comfortable and able to reinvest. And so it took us a few years to we're not going to be able to do this year. We can't do this. We got to let that grow a little bit. And so now, talking to Jeff, and we think this is a good time, and we're able to start making these improvements. I feel like some of the things I showed in the pictures, just him and I, we've kind of thrown out the $1 million number to make all the improvements of what I just showed to get back to where we need to be. And I think once this phase would be complete, then we would take a look at the future growth and how can we expand Eastside, or how can we expand tourism in East Peoria. But I feel like to say we're going to spend it and go build something on Splashdown's property, but not take care of the other 90 acres, I feel like that's not the right way to do it. So I'm more of take care of what we got, keep the events we have, keep the money coming in, and then as we transition to see more success, then we can expand, build, whatever we want to do. Just to kind of just to show the numbers a little bit, it's been pretty consistent the last 4 or 5 years, like again with the festival taking care of itself. Revenues and expenses allow us some extra money to go into that reserve. So you can look at it two ways. We can say we're going to just go up front and knock a bunch of stuff out and pay ourselves back, or we spread this out over 2 or 3 years. It's the same amount of money. I don't know that to knock out, we can't just close a facility and just say we're going to redo everything, so we got to stay open. So we have to piece these things in when the time allows. So, we get to a season where we can maybe do some things February, March, April, but then May, June, July, not so much. August, September, so it might take a couple years to get some of these things taken care of. And we would prioritize based on the safety concerns first, and then second of all, what's it going to take to keep some of these events that are open for bid, or maybe looking to see what's out there, try to make sure we can do our best to keep those and address the safety, and then work our way towards a longer term plan. So that's kind of my thought on it all. One last thing I would say is staffing, and it goes back to what we talked about with maybe a crew that just doing city cleanup and things like that. But minimum wage rates obviously are going to go up. Our concession prices are going to have to go up along with it to cover that. We've talked about internally the future of the child care, and if it's an extra fee, if it just eliminated altogether. Those are things we're thinking about. Also, the festival lights with the TV show, I don't see it going away anywhere anytime soon. We've discussed it with John, and he's not going to be around forever. So some sort of replacement plan or succession plan there is probably smart. And then obviously we've talked about with Ty and Chief Knapp and everybody, the community branding thing that's going around. We need to market ourselves better. We need to market the things we have, the events that are coming up, and whether that's looking into having more of a real presence of, a social media person, and Jill's great, don't get me wrong, and I'm not saying that. I think there's more than she can do because, she's got other things to do. So, it's amazing what she's able to balance. But we are in a point where there's going to be so many more people that are checking out what we're all about, and whether that's websites. I'm just throwing it all out there with as far as as this brand thing kind of continues to roll with the schools and the park, and that's what we brought up in the last meeting was it's not just us. We have to all work together, and I don't know if that means it's a collaborative effort with other entities that say we need to make sure people know what East Peoria is, and we're getting our message out there. So that was not anything to Jill. It was more of a citywide, all the entities involved, making sure that we're taking this next decade and making sure we're promoting ourselves.
Real quick, Doug, first of all, thank you for the presentation, and I know it was a lot of information, but, I realized quite some time ago the asset that we're sitting on, having come from the hospitality industry, I can tell you firsthand, our retail stores, our hotels, and our restaurants, a bulk of that business is driven by Eastside, whether people want to believe it or not. It's a fact. I mean, coming from that business, I can tell you unequivocally, it's a fact. Your calendar event that you guys hold every year, just look at the turnout of the hotels and the businesses and the restaurants that show up, and they realize, looking at this calendar that's full pretty much throughout the year, the opportunity they have. And I think it speaks volumes, and I've always been supportive of reinvesting in there. It's tired. It needs it. I'm going to be fully supporting it. And I do realize the responsibilities you guys have outside of Eastside. And I think that's why I wanted to make sure the new council is fully aware of, your guys just aren't up maintaining Eastside. It's all these other facets throughout the city that you're responsible for.
And that's why I try to get away from the, east side. It's tourism and special events. It's everything that we do. And I know, so I've had people question, why did we get a new truck? Why do we have a new truck at East Side? And I said, well, if I just had East Side, I wouldn't need a truck. But I have to do festival and levy district, and so we're mowing, we're snow plowing, we're doing all these things outside East Side. It's just that's just where the truck's parked. It's not because I have to have 4 trucks at East Side. I wouldn't. If I just had the 100 acres and I had my own little island, I wouldn't need a bunch of pickup trucks. So once you explain it to people, they understand it, but it's until you can get the question asked or be able to say it out in public, people don't really understand like everything that encompasses tourism and special events, 4th of July and festival lights and all that stuff. That's why we have all the equipment and needs that we have, is because we're spread out citywide, not just one small complex in the city.
I'd like to open it up to the council.
Yeah, if I go first, I'll second what the mayor said, and I understand a lot of what Doug is saying, because I'm at a point in my life where every weekend in the summer, I'm either at a softball tournament or a basketball tournament. I think my daughter played basketball in 3 different states last summer, and so I'll echo what Doug said. I think sports have changed, the Little League or the rec leagues have gone away, but I'll echo what the mayor said as well. East Side, 96 is when it opened, so we were both sophomores in high school, I think, and remember running the first track meet on that track and then watching baseball games and whatnot, and really the facility hasn't changed a whole lot since then. I completely believe everything. I know he's telling the truth with the original roofs, the original landscaping. Inside East Side's facility is the original. It is a little, I think the mayor used the word tired, and I think that's a good phrase. I think it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, Doug said, and I would be all for reinvesting in it to have East Peoria continue to reap the benefits of it. It's been great for our community, and I think it can continue to be great. But I do think if we're going to be competitive, seeing some of the other facilities around the area or around the state, we still have a nice facility. It's still nice, and I will say our crews, as far as ball diamonds go, our ball diamonds are the best, and they are the quickest, and they get them done. So compliments to your guys on that. But if we're going to continue to do that, we are going to have to reinvest, or the other communities that are doing that are going to take the tournaments or take the if it's volleyball or basketball inside. We'll lose those, and I think that East Side has been a major reason that we've built this entire area down here. And I can also say from a parent's perspective, it is expensive when you go to a tournament. People are coming and spending a lot of money when you go, because even your local people are doing that when they're playing games here. They're spending money to get sales tax. So it's an industry I think the cities would be beneficial to continue being in.
First of all, I'd like to stick up for Doug a bit, having been someone who has said things and it comes across to sound one way and you mean it another. Everybody knows how hard of a worker Jill is. She does a great job. But I think I understand what you're saying. Many times when we've invested in other entities or groups to help us advertise Eastside, we feel the importance of Eastside sometimes in the amount of people that Eastside is able to bring to our community. I personally have felt like it deserves its own focus. And I think that's what you meant by that, and I tend to agree. We bring many, many people to the city of East Peoria every year, but we have the potential to bring even more. You do a great job with the facility. And one thing I wrote down, I just wrote a bunch of notes. I was really impressed with your comments tonight, your strength in your comments, because you said it differently tonight than sometimes that you've said in the past, and just very direct, like this is what we need to do. And I so much agree that I've only heard a few complaints about Eastside over the years. One, like being lighting out in the parking lot, things like that. The parking lot needs to get better. The equipment needs to have upgrades, and the facility itself needs to upgrade. But the one complaint I've heard that's, I think, scared me the most is that if you don't start investing in Eastside, then all these other facilities that are popping up throughout the nation, Midwest, whatever, people are going to choose to go there. They go to the shiny new place. We have something that all these other places don't have, and that is that our facility is paid for. Any investment that we make is bonus. We already have a great foundation, great traffic, and any investment that we make, I see it as it's going to pay dividends at a much faster rate than other places will. We have such a good reputation because of you and your staff and everybody that works at Eastside, the history, everybody that helped build Eastside. We have a great reputation of doing things right. A couple things with the lagoon area. One question I have, and it's really the only question I want to take a side note on, can we utilize the lagoon area, or is it necessary for drainage? I've always thought that it was necessary to keep some sort of retention there. Is that not true?
No, it's not true. It was man-made, and he might know better than I do, actually. It was man-made because they needed that extra dirt, and then they had the idea of fishing derbies and paddle boats and things like that. To be honest with you, the irrigation setup wasn't quite right. I mean, we pull water out of the well aquifer down below. What should have happened is that water would have pulled out, put in the lagoon, let all the stuff settle, and then pump it out of there. They didn't do it that way. So it was basically a backup emergency type irrigation system, which in an emergency we could still pull from it, but technically it's dead space.
That's really good news, because that is quite a bit of space and an opportunity for us to utilize that space. And I was sitting here thinking, what all could we do? We've done a great job with what we have, but what I'm wondering is, I know you have looked thousands and thousands of hours of what we could do, but just wondering how detailed of an analysis that we've done. What would bring us more people, I guess? Is it more softball fields? Is it more soccer fields? I know we've talked about a dome in the past. I'm very involved with the band for the East Peoria. There are opportunities to bring very large events to places like East Peoria with some national things that travel around. As the others have said, I am totally on board with this. You have shown that you can, I want to use the word make a profit, but the amount of money brought to us by hotel motel, I think, should be invested, because it's one thing that people should recognize. The gaming came to East Peoria right about the same time when Eastside came to East Peoria. We had an enormous influx of people, at least close to there, coming to the city. When they did, what you'll notice over the last decade or so, gaming has declined a bit. I think Eastside and the people that we bring to town has assisted the Paradise in remaining profitable and hopefully remaining strong in East Peoria. We love the Paradise being here. But I think that one thing that is obvious to me is our sales tax has continued to explode. With so many people coming to our community, all the restaurants being filled, the hotels, and people coming to East Peoria and shopping, there's a reason for that. And it's a well-rounded community I think we've developed. And I'm supportive of coming forward with, this is where I think we should spend the money. And if there is any way to do an analysis of seeing that this will be the most, I hate to use the word profitable, but to bring the most to the city by doing these things, I'd certainly be interested in that.
I think I'll, echo pretty much what the rest of the council said up to this point. Doug had mentioned that some of us have been in the middle. I spent about 12 years up there with 3 boys and a daughter playing baseball and softball every summer. and being on the baseball board for 7 years. And so the sad thing that was a great complex, it still is, but one of the sad points was even then we recognized that the city was not putting money in to maintain the facility. So we had the best facility in the area. So I definitely am in support of putting money back into East Side and maintaining, like Commissioner Decker had said, that, you know, if we don't, and I looked at one of the pictures of the, you know, the vinyl sidings broke on one of the corners. I'm big on the aesthetics because, as you said, that as these visitors come into town, it's about that experience. And like, oh, you know, you got cracked sidewalks, unlevel, you've got holes, you know, small holes. They might be small problems, but it's the entire experience. It's just not that game they're playing on the field. So I'm definitely interested in this council is making an attempt to be better at planning, and I think you should be part of the rotational plans and have you know, your vehicles in the rotation. But right now, I think the challenge for us will be what can we do now so we can make it work and put a plan down. Then I'm definitely all for getting the east side, maintaining it and bringing it back to what it should be.
Commissioner Sutherland?
All I can tell you, and that is the lagoon comes in pretty handy when there's a drought, because there's just so much that well can do, and during a drought, it's saved our butt a couple good times. And it's kind of happy to hear 20-some years later that you guys are trying to figure out how to keep things up. I can tell you that Eastside started out as a corporation. It had virtually nothing to do with, it did have city direction, it did have high school direction, and it did have park district direction, but it was an independent thing. And then they kind of got overwhelmed. The volunteers couldn't keep up with the concessions, and somebody would be late and it wasn't open. And little things like the gutters, the gutters were not put on intentionally because of the baseballs were hitting them, because back then there was no netting. So it was a learning process, and some things do have to be addressed. I think the lagoon would be a tough one to get rid of from a construction point of view, but that's up to people smarter than me. You guys have done a good job, though, so far. Thank you.
I will open it up. Any comments from the public? We have one taker in the back row. Mr. Norwitz? Okay. Welcome down.
I'm curious about Eastside. Originally, was it operating as an enterprise unit, self-sufficient?
You mean an enterprise fund, you mean?
Yeah.
I can't tell you the history.
And what I guess what I'm wondering is it producing enough revenue to support itself as an enterprise fund? Or is it rely upon the city and the hotel motel tax? How much of that is being consumed by Eastside to keep it operating?
One thing that's always been difficult, Don, is just hearing this conversation over the years. I believe the answer is yes, but I don't believe it's always easy to show. And that is because that whereas Doug doesn't necessarily get an enormous amount of revenue coming across his desk, what it does bring to the community is so many people and visitors, and the amount of money they spend in our community, the hotels, and that bleeds into the restaurants and the money they spend at the Paradise and everything else. So I personally feel the answer is yes. It not only pays for itself, it's a much larger amount of money than it costs every year. I certainly can't guarantee that, and I can't tell you exactly how much, but what I can say is this: there are many people who come to the city of East Peoria and spend an awful lot of money that would not, if not for Eastside.
And truly, my question is it consuming more resources than it's producing?
No.
So the hotel motel tax, we're actually spending it on other things besides taking care of Eastside. It's being used for a whole host of other things.
Yes.
Or is,
Yeah.
are you
No,
consuming-
you're absolutely right.
So we're using it for both.
Yeah.
So, and I know we've talked about in the past about putting money into it, and yes, this is the time. You either make a decision to get in or get out, and, with the amount of revenue that it does produce, and it sounds like it's a good idea to move forward with maintaining it or upgrading it to produce for the future. I'm curious, though, as we learned the lessons of, say, the water and sewer, where we let it go, and now we're in for a big amount, are we building capital funds to maintain it and take care of it, or are we just limping along?
Go ahead, Jim.
Currently in the hotel motel account, after the project over on El Torfer, there's still going to be 1.8 million in that account. So the funds have been set aside, as Doug said in the slide here, over the last 10 years.
So, and that's what, is good to see then, that we have the funds that are being set aside to maintain it, and once again, producing enough to keep adding to it, so,
Yeah. Perfect.
thank you.
Thanks, Don. I think Commissioner Mangus had one more question before we seek to adjourn.
Thank you. Doug, real quick, I agree with your philosophy to upgrade, take care of it, fix everything before we were to do anything new. But if there was something that could be done to it, East Side, to bring in more people, in your perfect world, what do you see that being?
More indoor space. Because the climate we live in.
More indoor
More indoor space.
I was-
Climate we live in with the sports that are going year-round, kids are picking a sport early on and staying in that. They're not going to, the three-sport athlete in high school, so to speak, is gone. It's pretty much gone. So you're not going to have a kid that plays football and goes and plays basketball or wrestles and then goes and plays baseball or track. They're going to pick soccer and they're going to play it year-round.
Is that like a dome-type facility or just something?
Either one. So
Okay.
you could take it both ways. I mean, him and I have talked about a dome. Obviously, that's easy to fill. You could go on the back side, east side. And one of the things I've talked with Splashdown, you got the back wall that's already on the east side. You've got the concessions that were Splashdown concessions. You've got the door. You've got the locker rooms that would be bathrooms. So your infrastructure is already in the main building. You're just basically adding 3 walls and putting more court space. So you could go 4 or 5 full-size basketball courts where we only have smaller courts for kids. So you go full-size, you take it a whole nother level of sports, and you go 6 more volleyball courts, and next thing you know, instead of us having tournaments at Riverplex and Eastside and everywhere else, it's all contained in one area. So the demand for indoor facilities, and really year-round, so if you do just like, for example, Louisville Slugger, they can have a tournament in the summer, they've got 2 fields going inside, it's air-conditioned. So it's year-round. So indoor space is more valuable because you can use it year-round. So instead of putting outdoor fields where you can only use them 7 or 8 months a year, it'd be more indoor space.
Well, I think we're going to
Thanks,
wrap
Doug.
this up because we're up against time here. But thank you, Doug, and thanks to all your staff. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate all that you guys do to keep it going, and look forward to our future discussion here. I'd seek a motion to adjourn the working session.
So
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call?
Commissioner Decker?
aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor.
We'll go ahead and call this regular meeting of the East Peoria City Council to order, please. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Here.
Hill?
Here.
Mingus?
Here.
Sutherland? Mayor Call?
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please rise for an invocation. Remain standing for the pledge.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and this new year. A new year brings us new hopes, new beginnings, and new challenges. We ask that you give us strength as we continue to guide us on doing the right things. We are blessed by the many offerings to our citizens and residents and visitors. As we wrap up another Christmas season, we are thankful for you watching over all the city staff that makes Felipe happen and all the visitors that come through this wonderful city. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the minutes, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the minutes of the regular meeting held on December 17th, 2019, and the minutes of the closed meeting executive session held on December 17th, 2019, be approved as printed.
I have a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present, voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you. Have nothing under communications, public comment. Anyone wishing to address the council on an agenda item, please step forward. Seeing no one, before I turn it over to Commissioner Hill, I want to please note that resolution number 1920-099, the resolution authorizing a public hearing for the exchange of the city property located at Eastport Marina, has been polled for this evening. We're refining some of that language, and we'll bring it back on the 21st. So, Commissioner Hill?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a consent agenda consisting of items numbered 1 through 8. Item number 1, adoption of resolution 1920-098, resolution to approve payment of scheduled bills listed on schedule number 16 in the amount of $4,823,166.48. Item number 2, adoption of ordinance number 4473 on second reading, an ordinance authorizing a special use for property located at 235 State Street in the city of East Peoria, Tazewell County, Illinois, to allow an accessory structure which has an alternative exterior material. Item number 3, adoption of ordinance number 4474 on second reading, an ordinance authorizing a special use for the property located at 322 Park Avenue in the city of East Peoria, Tazewell County, Illinois, to allow a structure which has an alternative exterior material. Item number 4, adoption of ordinance number 4469 on second reading, an ordinance amending zoning regulations in Title V of the East Peoria City Code to prohibit video gaming cafes. Item number 5, adoption of resolution 1920-092 on second reading, resolution approving the cleaning and rehabilitation of water well number 17 by Brotke Well and Pump, Inc. at a cost of $28,147. Item number 6, adoption of resolution number 1920-096 on second reading, resolution approving contract for water main extension work as part of the project development and main-on-main development area with Walker Excavating Company, Inc. in the amount of $14,104. Item number 7, adoption of resolution 1920-093 on second reading, resolution authorizing the outfitting of the new Battalion Number 1, new 2019 Ford F-250 for the Fire Department by Reagan Communications. Item number 8, adoption of resolution 1920-095 on second reading, resolution authorizing the purchase of a new power cot for the fire department's ambulance fleet from Stryker Corporation, as listed on the agenda for this meeting to be considered by omnibus vote.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present, voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that items number 1 through 8 listed on the consent agenda be hereby approved and adopted, and items number 2 through 8, having been read once by their title and having laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection, be adopted as presented.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call.
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, tonight I have one case, now that we've pulled one. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of East Peoria that Resolution 1920-097 hereto attached, a resolution approving renewal of cybersecurity insurance coverage be approved. Mr. Mayor, I move that resolution number 1920-097 be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker.
What we have here is that our cybersecurity policy expired January 1st of 2020, so it just expired. And what this is the renewal. And the times that we're in, I don't think you have to explain too much of why there are many people, many hackers of any other people out there that are very willing and wanting to, if our cybersecurity was lapsed, would definitely take advantage of this municipality or any others. And so it's a necessary evil, and so this is a renewal of our policy that just expired.
Very good. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call.
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
That's all
Thank
for
you.
me tonight.
Very good. Commissioner Decker.
I have nothing, Mayor.
Very good. Commissioner Sutherland.
I got something here, if I can find it. Mr. Mayor, I move you that ordinance number 4477, hereto attached, an ordinance authorizing the grant and acceptance of easements for project development in Main development area, be accepted on its first reading as read by its title and be laid on the table for no less than 1 week for public inspection.
Very good. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus.
If I might, Mr. Rick, could you explain this, please?
Sure will, Commissioner. My understanding is this is clearing up some right-of-way issues or some railroad property along Altorfer for the Altorfer Lane Improvement Project. There was an old railroad bed that paralleled the roadway, and I think that clears up this right-of-way.
Very good. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call.
Aye.
Of all present voting aye, Your Honor.
Very good. Commissioner Mingus?
I have no items tonight, Your Honor.
Yeah, that's just outstanding. Any public comments on a non-agenda item? Anyone wishing to address the council on a non-agenda item, please step forward. Seeing no one. Turn it over to you, Commissioner Decker.
Unless this is, unless somebody else has an awful lot, this is probably the fastest meeting I've been at in
Yeah.
years. I have nothing further, Mayor.
Very good. Commissioner Hill?
I have nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Wow. Commissioner Sutherland?
Yeah, if I could say a couple things.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
You have the floor.
Actually, I wrote a lot. I don't know how much I'll get through. I would like to introduce Cord Chrysler. He's our new water and sewer department head, and good man. I think he's going to do us a good job. The truck that I complained about 2 weeks ago that was ordered wrong is gone, and we're going to sit down and get the input from the guys that's going to have to drive it and Mr. Chrysler, and that we're going to reorder it. And it'll be a couple months down the road before we get it and get the correct bid on it. I'm going to get on my soapbox again for a couple minutes here, and I would like to explain again how many millions of dollars we're spending for the sewer treatment plant upgrades. And those of us who recycle and like to hug a tree or two every once in a while, I'm asking you guys to quit putting things in that you shouldn't be. Flushables is a huge thing. I don't care what the store says. I don't care what the box says. Don't buy them, don't use them. They're causing a large problem in our system and every community's system. Another thing is that we need to get everybody disconnected their sump pumps off of our system, which we have to build huge lagoons which hold millions and millions and millions of gallons for the only reason because we're not a strong enough community as of yet to make or talk the people into disconnecting and doing it correctly according to the EPA rules and regulations and our own city rules and regulations. If you need help and direction on whether you have a problem in your house, call me. I'm going to give you my telephone number. It's 989-1264. That's my cell phone. Text me, call me. You can email me. My email address is all small words, all one long sentence is Michael Sutherland at cityofeastpeoria.com. We, the city, or I will come to your house upon your request and tell you where you stand, whether you have a problem or you don't. Because once again, when the manhole lids blow off of sewer lines coming down Arnold Road, and the second manhole lid is 70 or 80 feet above the other one, that tells me that that is a huge, huge problem. And we're going to fix it. So I hope everybody joins in. And it's also an environmental issue because the more water that goes to the sewer treatment plants is the more chemicals that have to be used. And it goes into the river. Every drop of it goes into the river. Every chemical you put in and we put in. And just because you use chemicals at your house don't mean that what we use neutralizes it. It does not. It does not, because the community to do with sewer treatment plants is the more water, it dilutes it as a solution. I totally disagree with that, and it's the improper way to do it, but it's a quick and easy and cheap answer. And I know the state highway, next subject, put new lights on Route 150 Meadow Avenue. Kudos. They did a good job. I'm done.
Very good. Commissioner Mingus.
Just had one quick item, Your Honor. Typically at this time, we remind the public that the fire department does car seat checks. Fire department car seat checks are done for the month of January and February. We don't do those due to unpredictable weather, but they do pick back up in March. But if there is a family out there that wants to get their car seat checked, they can call 698-4700 and schedule an appointment, and the fire department will still help them with that. We just don't have open appointments to do that. So individual appointments are still taken.
Very good. Appreciate you bringing that up. Just real quick, to Commissioner Sutherland's point, we held a meeting today, and in 2 weeks, we'll be bringing before council some change orders with that wastewater treatment plant upgrade. These guys are doing a great job. Everybody's working really hard and staying on top of it. It's progressing as planned. Actually, the weather's helped us, been beneficial to us. So anyway, we'll be bringing our next set of change orders before council in 2 weeks. Happy New Year to everybody, and we will shortly begin the budget process heading into next fiscal year, so stay tuned on that, but we'll begin that process here in the very near future. So that being said, I would seek a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn until Tuesday evening, January 21st, 2020 at 6 p.m.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Any discussion? Of course not. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you. Till we meet again, we are adjourned.